UN experts report, Israel committing genocide. UN expert report accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza. A detailed human rights violation report by a United Nations specialized expert concluded there are reasonable grounds to believe Israel is committing genocide against Palestinian people in Gaza area, a major conclusion as the war approaches 6 months of fighting by Israeli armed forces against mostly unarmed civilians. The report concluded and recommended in the end that we cannot avert our eyes, we must confront genocide, we must prevent it, and we must punish it. Francesca Albanese, UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories. Israel's ongoing armed offensive in Gaza area qualifies as genocide on at least 3 grounds. According to the expert report by Albanese, the UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestine, Francesca Albanese, published her report, titled Anatomy of a Genocide, on Tuesday before presenting it to the Greater Human Rights Council in the United Nations. The report states, history teaches us that genocide is a process, not a single act. It starts with the dehumanization of a group as other and the denial of that group's humanity, and ends with the destruction of the group in all or in part, she said before the council. The dehumanization of Palestinians as a group is the hallmark of their decades-long history of ethnic cleansing, dispossession, and apartheid. The latest hostilities began when Hamas group attacked Israel, killing around 1,200 people and taking hostages. Nearly half of the hostages were released during a temporary pause in fighting several months ago, and around 30 of the remaining captives are believed to be dead. Albanese's report includes a condemnation of Hamas and its attack, and calls for the release of remaining hostages. Israel's offensive in Gaza has killed more than 32,000 Palestinians in the territory and wounded over double that number, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. That death toll does not include those still buried under the rubble of structures that have been razed by soldiers. Much of the Palestinian population has been displaced, with many on the brink of starvation, as Israel has restricted food, medical supplies, and how much aid can enter the Gaza enclave. By analyzing the patterns of violence and Israel's policies in its onslaught in Gaza, this report concludes that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the threshold indicating Israel's commission of genocide is met. Albanese expressed in the report. Israel rejected Albanese's findings, saying the report's use of the word genocide was outrageous. Israel further added that Israel utterly rejects the report. It is simply an extension of a campaign seeking to undermine the very establishment of the Jewish state. The Israeli mission to Geneva said. Francesca Albanese stated, by analyzing the patterns of violence and Israel's policies in its onslaught in Gaza, this report concludes that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the threshold indicating Israel's commission of genocide is met. Francesca Albanese, UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories. The 1948 Genocide Convention, enacted after the Nazis' genocide of Jews, codifies the term as an international crime committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. In order for genocide to legally have been committed, an accused country or group has to meet 2 main criteria. It must have committed one or more of the specific acts mentioned in the convention, and there must be evidence of its intention to carry out said acts in order to destroy the targeted group. In her report, Albanese proved that Israel has committed at least 3 acts of genocide as defined in the convention, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, and deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part. The survivors will carry an indelible trauma, having witnessed so much death and experienced destruction, homelessness, emotional and material loss, endless humiliation and fear. The report states, such experiences include fleeing amidst the chaos of war without telecommunications and electricity, witnessing the systematic destruction of entire neighborhoods, homes, universities, religious and cultural landmarks, digging through the rubble, often with bare hands, searching for loved ones, seeing bodies desecrated, being rounded up, stripped naked, blindfolded and subjected to torture and other cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment, and ultimately being starved, adults and children alike. One of the key findings in Albanese's report says that Israel's executive and military leadership and soldiers have intentionally invoked the ill framework as humanitarian camouflage in order to legitimize genocidal violence against Palestinians. Israel has done this by deploying concepts such as human shields, collateral damage, safe zones, evacuations, and medical protection in such a permissive manner so as to erode the distinction between civilians and combatants in Israeli actions in Gaza. According to the expert report, such behavior has transformed an entire national group and its inhabited space into a destroyable target, the report went on. This illustrates a clear pattern of conduct from which the requisite genocidal intent is the only reasonable inference to be drawn. As proof of Israel's intent, the special rapporteur laid out genocidal rhetoric in statements made by the country's highest-ranking officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Isaac Herzog, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Israeli Defense Force spokesperson Daniel Hagari, Agriculture Minister Avi Dichter, Heritage Minister Amihai Eliyahu, and the right-wing Likud party's Revital Gottlieb. Vitriolic genocidal rhetoric has painted the whole population as the enemy to be eliminated and forcibly displaced, the report stated. Such calls for annihilatory violence directed at troops on duty constitute strong evidence of direct and public incitement to commit genocide. Decades of discourse dehumanizing Palestinians have prepared the groundwork for such incitements. Independent experts and academics, as well as nations including South Africa, which petitioned before the International Court of Justice, have warned that Israel's actions since October 7 amount to genocide. On January 26, the ICG found a plausible risk of irreparable prejudice to the rights of Palestinians in Gaza and ordered Israel to take all measures within its power to prevent genocidal acts and incitement and provide urgent humanitarian aid. Human rights groups have since raised concerns that Israel is ignoring the ICJ's order, even after the UN Security Council passed a resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire to last at least through Ramadan. In her recommendations, Albanese called on countries to immediately impose sanctions on Israel and to enact an arms embargo. She also asked member states to, among other actions, back South Africa in its case before the ICG, ensure an independent and transparent investigation of all violations of international law committed by Israel and Hamas, and make certain that Israel and other complicit states acknowledge the harm already done by committing to not repeating it and ensuring reparations for Gazans. We cannot avert our eyes. We must confront genocide. We must prevent it, and we must punish it, Albanese told the council. The catastrophic situation I investigated is known, as it has been broadcast to the world in real time by its victims. Albanese's report, which could have legal implications for South Africa's case before the International Court of Justice, triggered polarizing reactions from many members of the Human Rights Council. Countries alarmed at the Humanitarian crisis expressed support for the report's findings, while nations that continue to back Israel's offensive voiced anger at both the report and at Albanese, Israel's project to rid Palestine of Palestinians in defiance of international law and the world's failure to call Israel to account. That has led to genocide laid bare in Gaza, she told the council. Denial of the reality and the continuation of Israel's impunity and exceptionalism is no longer valid, especially in light of yesterday's binding Security Council resolution. I implore member states to abide by their obligations